All right, welcome in everybody to the fifth episode of the Celtics Power Hour. We're doing it, Ev. We're staying consistent on this. So pat yourself on the back, Ev. Give yourself a little pat there. 5 weeks in a row, 5 episodes in, and certainly not a lack of content, not a lack of drama. We certainly have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, no, the Celtics have made this pretty easy to say, hey, let's jump on here. Let's do the power hour. Let's do it. Like, I don't think that we've had any issues thus far on on stuff to talk about or, anything that we can say, hey, should this be the title of the show or should we figure it out? They've made our jobs pretty easy.
Yeah, it's like, what should be the title? Let's see. Maybe Marcus Smart comments, Ben
Yeah.
Simmons, all this stuff. It's like, yeah, pretty easy. But that's where we're gonna start today. Ben Simmons, the trade rumors that come out a few days ago now from Shams Charania, and basically Shams saying the Celtics have called the Sixers about Ben Simmons, and the Sixers want Jaylen Brown. Shocker! My goodness, the Sixers. You know what seems funny about the Sixers asking price for Ben Simmons, Ev, is it seems like they keep asking for players that are better than Ben Simmons. It's like, wow, what a novel concept that you would want Damian Lillard and Jaylen
Yeah.
Brown for Ben Simmons. It's like, you know what? You might be asking for a bit too much, Philadelphia.
I mean, they clearly feel like the drama, the not playing with the team, the not showing up, or when he did show up, he had his phone in his pocket and got asked to leave, and all this. Like, they feel like that hasn't diminished his sort of value whatsoever. Which is funny because I feel like 29 out of 30 teams now look at Ben Simmons lesser than he probably was, 2 years ago, say. There's one team that still thinks Ben Simmons is this absolute, superstar, gonna be a transcendent sort of great, absolute, and not to say he's not, but there's one team that still thinks, oh my God, there's no chance he's not. It's the Sixers, and they're throwing him out there as if he is. Like they are acting like their worm on the end of the fishing line is like a big piece of steak, and they're gonna try and catch a shark or something. It's like they do have to temper their expectations, and it's gonna come down to. I know we're gonna talk specifically with the Celtics, but on his end of things, I guess Ben Simmons' end, they're going to have to temper their expectations of a return. It's going to come down to whether or not they really want him gone, or can they get past this? Can they work it out? Because they're not going to get you don't have a situation like this and trade the guy for hundreds of dollars on the dollar. Like, you might get pennies on the dollar because of all the drama.
You know what's so interesting about this entire Ben Simmons trade saga is, I mean, I mentioned the Sixers keep asking for these players that I don't know if I mean, never mind. I said that wrong. I shouldn't have said I don't know. I know that I wouldn't trade for Ben Simmons, even if all of this off the court stuff wasn't happening, even if he didn't just implode in a playoff series, even if he wasn't getting perhaps a little bit overpaid, even if the Sixers weren't actually doing better without him right now. If all of that stuff wasn't the case and you said Jaylen Brown for Ben Simmons, I might probably still say no. If you said Damian Lillard or Ben Simmons, I'm taking Damian Lillard. Like, the fact that Philadelphia is just putting on the blinders and ignoring the fact that Ben Simmons, not only would he not make sense for the Celtics to trade Jaylen Brown for him or Damian Lillard for him, that his value is crushed, and that's not changing. Like, Daryl Morey at this point is like the last Japanese soldier fighting the World War II or whatever it is, like that old expression they say where he's like, it's over, man, it's over, you lost. Like, Ben Simmons, you're not getting anything good for Ben Simmons, so just take your loss. You messed up already by not trading him when his value is at his highest. That's one thing. Then supposedly you could have got Malcolm Brogdon from the Pacers. Then he signed his extension, so that trade was off the table. And now you're just like, you are really, really screwed. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to keep this guy on your roster all season without him playing? Like, they have misplayed their hand so drastically that I said this in the Guy Boston Sports chat, and I don't know if you saw it. Daryl Morey has basically transformed into Sam Hinkie 2.0 at this point for the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, he has had an incredible fall from grace, and it's just like the fact that he's like sticking in his bunker and he's like, no, I'm not giving up on this Ben Simmons. He should be traded for Damian Lillard. He has all the conspiracy theory, strings all attached. Ben Simmons' face to Damian Lillard's face to Jaylen Brown's face, question mark. Like, that's Daryl Morey right now, and it's kind of sad.
It is so I don't know. It is funny because when you think about Ben Simmons, it's like, okay, like I just said, maybe he has fallen down a few pegs and whatnot, but Ben Simmons is still really, 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 really good. I think the only thing that's poking the bear here, or even causing any sort of drama among Celtics fans, or at least this is my mindset, it's that you asked for Jaylen Brown, and then we've even seen reports that the ask was like Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Rob Williams, and a first round pick,
Okay,
and
so
it's like,
hold
what are
on.
you
I'm gonna
talking
stop
about?
you. I'm gonna stop you. I think that was a fake tweet. I saw that tweet too. I think that tweet duped a lot of people. I think it was from
Well,
the NBA Central account. I think it was from one of those fake NBA Central accounts. I'm pretty certain.
that's definitely a breath of, like, that's good then. That's like a sigh of relief because that's ridiculous. But even still, Jaylen Brown's name in that conversation, it's like I think Jaylen Brown's like top 15, top 10 in scoring this year. Like, you know what I mean? He's legit. He's been the Celtics' best player this year. So why are you asking for the best player on the roster statistically right now? For a guy that isn't even playing, and you kind of touched on it too, didn't exactly finish off the season last year too well or anything like that. It's like, how could you be so blinded by a guy that had all the potential in the world and still trying to trade him like he is that? So it's kind of annoying to even see that this like goes through the headlines. But I will say, and it's kind of how I started this point, like Ben Simmons on the Celtics, I'm not like all that opposed to. I mean, I would figure out like, is it worth it and that type of thing. But you throw Jaylen Brown's name in there, and it is an immediate no.
All right, so immediate note. There it is. Jim Jefferson, Ben Simmons. We're both a no. Pretty clear. Now let's turn it to the Celtic side of things because I think it's very clear that Shams Charania this was a Sixers leak. This was a report from someone he talked to with the Sixers saying this the Celtics called and the Sixers want, and like that, it's all from the Sixers perspective, okay? And then the Boston Globe, Gary Washburn, and other people around Boston, Mark Murphy of Boston Herald, they come out and immediately after that Shams Charania report came out, Brad Stevens is running to the phone to call Mark Murphy and Gary Washburn and saying, this is not happening. Like, this is not what's actually happening here. So those two guys say the Celtics have no interest in trading Jaylen Brown for Ben Simmons, obviously. But they do say that the Celtics have some interest there. They did make those phone calls. It wasn't about Jaylen Brown, but they wanted to see what it would cost. And on top of that, Gary Washburn reporting that, I don't know if you saw this, Ben Simmons would be interested in a potential trade to Boston. So what are your thoughts on that outside of Jaylen Brown?
I mean, outside of Jaylen Brown, I do think Ben Simmons could be a fit here just based on the fact that he plays defense, he can run the court. Like, I get it. Maybe he's not he's not a one guy or even a two guy in terms of being your superstar. But if Jaylen Brown was here and Jason Tatum was here, Ben Simmons would be your number 3. You know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't have these struggles that I think he's had in Philly because he wouldn't have to be the scorer there. And I know that they have Embiid and Tobias Harris, but since the Sixers got Ben Simmons, it's been like that was their guy. You know what I mean? And then Embiid, and that's kind of why they've butted heads, because who's our guy? I think Embiid's clearly won that race, but I wouldn't be opposed to Ben Simmons in Boston. Now, that being said, I'm 100% not jumping through hoops and ladders to get him here, and we talked about his value and his trade value. If they could get him 4 pennies on the dollar, then I don't see why you don't do that. If the Celtics were 10-0 right now, Jason Tatum was cooking, Jaylen Brown was doing what he's doing, Al Horford's looking like he's a 19-year-old rookie, like, then maybe I'd say, no, we don't need that. But there have been some issues with the Celtics. There have been some defensive issues with the Celtics. And, guys minutes that he might take if he were to come here, they've had some issues, I guess. So I'm not totally opposed to Ben Simmons in Boston. It's the price that's so, that's the driving force here. Like, it's the price. And maybe if you asked me 2 years ago or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, like, I'd give up a lot for him. Still probably not Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, but Ben Simmons, like, I get that we're all supposed to hate Ben Simmons, and I have. Like, I've on videos, in blogs, everything like that. I hate Ben Simmons, but he is still a good player. It's just a matter of, if he's in the right situation, and running the floor with the Jays, I think could be a pretty good situation for him. But for Jaylen Brown or anything like that, I don't think so. Like, it's all value based for me, or trade, or price based, I should say, cost based and price.
So do you think there is any universe in which the Philadelphia 76ers consider a Ben Simmons to Boston trade without Jaylen Brown in it? If it was Marcus Smart and other pieces, we'll get
I
into in a
mean,
second. But do you think the Sixers would ever do that?
they should based on Ben Simmons' value right now, but they won't. You can tell by the rumors that have come out and whatnot. Like that is there's no situation in this world based on what they've asked for already.
Okay, so let's base this on as far as what they asked for. Let's bring it back to reality. Let's imagine that someone comes to Daryl Morey and they have like a coup de grace or whatever. They have an intervention for him, and they say we got to trade Ben Simmons. You know, we got to just take whatever the best offer is. And no, let's not go that far yet. Okay, let's just say that Daryl Morey comes back down to earth with what his demands are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that with the rivalry that exists there, with the competition between the two teams, just add in the fact that they're in the conference, same conference, if you want to add in the fact that they're in the same division, do that. Do you think that they would actually trade Ben Simmons to Boston? Like, remember, by the way, this is a different leadership. But do you remember back with the Sixers when they had Jahlil Okafor and they were trading Jahlil Okafor? They didn't want to trade him to Boston because they didn't want Jahlil Okafor to be a great player with the Celtics and come back to bite them. So do you think that same thing exists with Ben Simmons? Do you think there's any chance that Philadelphia says, you know what, I don't care what the offer is, besides if they get crazy and offer us Brown or Tatum, we're not trading him to Boston?
I mean, I never buy into those. Like the only sport I think that I feel like that would be like football. I could see that, you know, when you only have a limited amount of games, you play this team twice a year, guaranteed, that type of thing. Like you don't want him to hurt you. But in the NBA, I feel like we've started to move past that. Like I feel like if the Celtics were to give them an offer they thought was a realistic offer and everything like that, I don't know if they would be like, oh no, we can't trade him to our Eastern Conference rival. I feel like the NBA doesn't think like that anymore. And I know you're only talking Jahlil Okafor, like we're only a few years, I guess probably more, making us feel old at that point. But then removed from that, it's like that's too like macho for me, where I don't think that sort of mindset exists anymore. So I do think that, you know, if the offer is right, or if they had a realistic offer and the Celtics could bring something to the table, I don't think that it would be like, oh, well, we like that, but because you're the Celtics, we're going to say no. I don't think so.
Okay. So I disagree with you, but I like that you don't think so. I find it refreshing that you think they would actually consider that, because now we can have this discussion. If it was me, I would say no chance. They're not doing the Boston. I don't care. But you said it, so let's play. Let's play a little bit. Let's play around. Okay. Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Aaron Nesmith, Peyton Pritchard. Every pick you have for Ben Simmons. Do you do that?
Smart, Nesmith, Robert Williams, and every pick.
Pritchard.
So Smart, Nesmith, Pritchard, Williams, and every pick for what, next year or whatever
for
you
Ben
have.
Simmons.
Like, yeah. Well, no, I mean what picks for the end of time? Giving up our picks?
Every 3 years of picks and 2 picks. Let's just say that.
I mean, I wouldn't like to do it, but I think that that's something that you don't just hang up the phone on. Like, I feel like, you know, we could see.
So real quick, actually, before you answer, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I want to do this before you fully answer, because I want to give you the full scope. Let's say they do that, or say that's the offer. Okay, let's take inventory. Let's take inventory after the trade. You have Brown, you have Tatum, you have Simmons, you have Horford, you have Dennis Schroeder, you have Romeo Langford still on the roster, and Grant Williams. Like that's kind of it. So now go ahead.
I think that that's a decent enough core, though. And I feel like I hate being the guy that's like defending Ben Simmons. But if you can say on your team you have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons, that's a pretty damn good start to a team. Like, yeah, you'll figure out the rest. But I think that that's a good start. But the only thing I will say, I do think that Robert Williams, I'm still kind of believing in him. Like, I still trust him. He's the one that I sort of give second thoughts in that deal about. I don't really care about the picks. Like, this team to me doesn't need a bunch of young guys. Marcus Smart, I think Ben Simmons can do what Marcus Smart does. Peyton Pritchard, I would hate to see him go, but it doesn't even seem like they're really giving him that much of a chance right now. And then Aaron Nesmith, like that dude all he does is live for summer league and preseason. Like he hasn't done anything in the regular season. So Robert Williams would be my only hesitation there. And when I start to say all those out loud, like I can get over that. So I don't think that I'm running to the phone to say yes to that, but I'm definitely not hanging it up. But if they were to do that trade, I would sleep fine at night. But if I heard, oh, the Celtics passed this deal up, I would also sleep fine at night. Like that's a fine line for me.
So I think a lot of people are going to get mad at me. I'm one to like, if I'm trading for the star and giving up other pieces, I'll give up everything. Like, I don't care. Like, just get me the star. That's what I do. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that the Celtics emptied the cupboard for Kevin Garnett. They said everything we have besides Pierce and Allen, who they just traded for Garnett. And it worked out great. And those guys were older. So you instead of bringing in three older guys at the end of their prime, which you won one championship with, you're bringing in Ben Simmons with Tatum and Brown. And I wonder what their lineup would be in that case. Like, would you have Dennis Schroeder at the 1, Brown at the 2, Tatum at the 3, Simmons at the 4, and Horford at the 5? Suddenly, that's decent bit of shooting around Ben Simmons. Dennis Schroeder isn't the greatest shooter, but that's a pretty decent lineup, pretty decent starting lineup. And you kind of have to figure the rest out on the fringes. It gets a little rough, like I said, a little shaky on your bench when it's like, okay, your two best bench players are Romeo Langford and Grant Williams, and then you have Enes Kanter. And it's like, this starts to become something that we say, all right, if it's a 4-for-1 deal, maybe you have to do this in the offseason. Like, maybe this isn't going to work. I guess I also forgot one other name, didn't I? Josh Richardson. So you also have Josh Richardson on the roster. So maybe if you want to play Simmons at the 1, Richardson at the 2, Brown at the 3, Tatum at the 4, Horford at the 5, it's another option. So I personally, in my mind, if you can get Simmons, Brown, and Tatum together, you do whatever it takes to get that done. I understand the problems with Simmons, but he is very, very talented, just outside of the fact that he can't shoot. And you don't need me to tell you that. Everybody's been telling you that for a year. This guy's an all-star for a reason. He's a great defender. And you know what? People have been asking Marcus Smart not to shoot for years. So congratulations. You're getting a Marcus Smart caliber defender that doesn't shoot. That's what everybody's wanted, hasn't it been? So, why not? Why I don't see why not deal for Simmons in that case. I think that those three together could easily win a championship. And that's why I think the Sixers ultimately don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and again, like I said, I'm kind of on the fence there. I know it's not the answer anyone's looking for, but to me, that is still a haul for a guy that now, I know we're talking basketball here, but we can't forget, like, does this happen now in a year with Boston? Does he get...
let's put Julian's comment up there saying Simmons, what you're saying, it's still a haul. Simmons is not KG. Your trade idea value Simmons is the highest. I think
that's a decent comment. I think that's fair because
no, that's true.
You just traded like a million guys for Ben Simmons, who we just got finished talking for 10 minutes about how his value's so low right now. You know what I mean?
I traded 4 for the record. I traded 4 players, not a million, a little less. But I'll say this: you're right. The centerpiece of that KG deal was Al Jefferson, who was an All-Star caliber player, made an All-Star game after that. He was in contention for All-Star game, 20-point per game score. Who's the 20-point per game score that's in that deal? It's Robert Williams, Mark Smart, who are pretty good defenders, and then two prospects that
but maybe forget scoring. You are trading a guy that's like a prized possession of your team in Robert Williams. He's supposed to be your next big man in this, you know what I mean? So yes, he doesn't have those stats, but I think equally sort of, hey, this is our young piece. He could be your Al Jefferson here.
Maybe injury issues too with Robert Williams. So there's other factors to consider. I understand Simmons isn't KG, but he's still an all-star in this league, and he's much younger than KG was as well. So that all needs to be factored in. Term on his contract, everything like that. I want to get into more of these comments because we've literally had this 18-minute discussion about this because it's just great back and forth. But we'll get into some of the more of the comments now. Antonio saying if we're trading Brown, I say we might as well go for Lillard. I think Lillard and Brown duo is better than Lillard and Tatum. Tatum for Lillard, some other pieces for the Blazers. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on the Lillard thing? I mean, Lillard's right now, Lillard trade rumors have died down, so I don't even know if that's worth talking about too much.
I don't know. I mean, it's maybe I'm the crazy one. I thought that Celtics fans were all in alignment, but those Tatum and Brown are still two untouchable guys for me. That's nothing against Lillard or anything like that, but Tatum for Lillard, I don't know if you're solving the biggest of issues. You know what I mean? Like, if this team wants to take it to the next level, they need a guy alongside Tatum and Brown, in my opinion. And if you swap one of them out for any other star, I do think, your team might be different. You might do some things better, but you're kind of back to the same, state that you are now in terms of competing for a championship. Does that make sense? Like, I wouldn't be, if we just talked out Lillard, Tatum, and Brown all together, just like we kind of did with Simmons, then I'd be all over that. Maybe maybe even more than Simmons, just because I think Lillard, could provide some of the offensive struggles at the Celtics, some things that they do struggle at. But it's a no for me if we're trading Tatum for Lillard, and that's like I know Tatum's had a slow start to the year, but Jason Tatum's, I don't know, like I'll exaggerate again, a million years younger than Damian Lillard, and bigger, and has played with this team for a little bit longer. So I'm not swapping one of the Jays out for another superstar, because I think you'll be in a very, very similar spot you're in now.
And we got a lot of other people. It's Gear even saying, for Cat, other trade ideas for superstars that they could get, and who knows? Simmons is the one that's most available right now. And I saw Brandon saying too, we legit have to take Simmons out of the game in late game scenarios.
Yeah,
it's true of some pretty good players though. Like that happens, but Simmons. That's part of what you're taking and getting him. And who knows? Maybe you can fix it. Like Simmons a few years ago, like in the playoffs, Simmons just fell apart. And this is why part of the reason why his trade value is like zero right now. Basically, is that he shot like, what was it, 25% from the free throw line in the playoffs. Like he's not that kind of free throw shooter over the course of his career. Last season from the line was pretty bad, 61%. The year before, 62%. So it's not like he's DeAndre Jordan or Ben Wallace from out there. He's a bad free throw shooter, but he's a typical bad free throw shooter. He's about as bad as Tristan Thompson was. So
yeah, can I just say one thing though? The only difference, and I still think your point stands, like teams can work around that, but it is true, by the way. Like Brandon is right. Like they would probably maybe have to do that because of how bad he is foul shooting. I know that he's not statistically a 25% shooter, but I will say if he's supposed to be your point guard or the guy with the ball in your hands, I think that changes the late game a little bit differently. No one's trying to inbound it to Ben Wallace at the end of the game. They're looking for a sure-handed type of guy. Ben Simmons technically all game long would be that sure-handed, give it to him on your inbounds play type of player. And to take that out, it could throw a wrench into your entire late game offense because you're afraid that he's going to get fouled. But I don't even like that. So that comment's
right,
true.
But my
that
point
doesn't
is
impact the trade to me.
Right, but my point is even that, yes, obviously your Simmons is going to have a higher usage rate than Ben Wallace, but Simmons is a better free throw shooter than Ben Wallace. So like if they want to foul Ben Simmons, okay, they're giving you, basically they're allowing you to shoot 60% because you're 6 of 10. Yeah. He's a 6 of 10 free throw shooter, so you're getting 6 points every 5 trips down the floor. Like, are you not taking that? That's actually pretty good. Like, so it slows your offense to a slog, and teams feel like it's best if Simmons is shooting 25% from the line. Yeah, of course you foul him if you're an opposing team, but that's not always the equation. So to me, it's not something that's like super concerning to me. I understand that in certain spots it can be debilitating, and you probably would have to take him off the floor sometimes if that's the case. But he brings you so many other valuable things. Like, what are we talking about here? If you can get an all-star player, former number 1 overall pick, guy who's on the all defensive teams consistently, has a really high level passer. Like, if you can get that guy for non-all-stars, then why aren't you doing it? Like, I do that in a heartbeat. I don't think the Sixers do it. I think there's no chance, and I'm happy you said you did have, because now we can have this conversation, but I find it hard to believe. But hey, the reports are out there. The Celtics are calling. The Sixers are leaking that the Celtics are calling, which, I don't know. Is that because they just want to mess with the Celtics a little bit, or because they're actually trying to see if they can foster a deal through the media there? I don't know. I honestly don't know. This is what I will tell you. Marcus Smart, to me, is a Daryl Morey type of player. He's a good defender. Daryl Morey loves the 3-and-D player. I know that's not necessarily what Marcus Smart is with the 3 side of things, but, he had PJ Tucker for a long time. Marcus Smart, is in the same vein as PJ Tucker, different position, but, good defender, stick him in the corner, whatever. And then Peyton Pritchard and Aaron Nesmith, great 3-point shooters. Those are Daryl Morey type of players. So that's why I look at it and say, maybe that package would work. And then from the Robert Williams standpoint, I don't know if he goes to the Sixers. I think in all likelihood, he's being rerouted somewhere else, and the Sixers are getting a different piece. Maybe you reroute the pick somewhere else too, and they get someone else out of that deal. But I think there's a player that would be more valuable potentially out there to them that would be attainable from Robert Williams. But that's why I look at that package and say, like, I don't know. I'm gonna at least talk about it. I think it's the chances are slim to none, but I'll give it the time of day.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, and again, regardless of if we think the Sixers would or wouldn't, I started this saying pretty much like point blank, Ben Simmons to the Celtics is, I guess, a yes for me, just not Jaylen Brown. It's
Right.
it's totally your cost or the cost dependent, right? And that's where I think the Robert Williams, Aaron Nesmith, Peyton Pritchard, Marcus Smart, and a million picks, or say 6 picks or something, right? That is like where I start to go, okay, maybe this isn't as much of a discount as I think you should be getting on that player right now, because you just paid a hefty price. You didn't include either your superstars, so I mean, totally fair, but like that still is a big price. And I will say too, I think we saw a comment in here earlier being like, if they're giving up all those players and whatnot, the Sixers would probably have to send back something else, right? Like just to make even probably the minimum player type thing work. Forget money for a second. That would, and that's why I'm giving the shout out to the comment. I lost it here,
Right.
but that would
No,
totally
I
change
have
the
it.
deal. You know what I mean? That would totally change the deal, but that's sort of the unknown. Like I don't know exactly what we could speak of that. You're not going to get a Ben Simmons and a Seth Curry or something like that. Like you're not going to
Right.
get Ben Simmons will be your return, but maybe you do get something that can blossom into another potential filled player or something like that. But that definitely does from Tyler does change. That's kind of where the deal would come down to in reality, but we just don't have that info, I guess, to even hypothesize, right?
Well, I mean, I guess you could. To me, it would just be guys they would cut anyway, or
Right.
guys at the end of their roster. So like, who knows? Yeah, Andre Drummond, maybe. I mean, if especially if Robert Williams is just going right to them, maybe they send you back Andre Drummond. Maybe they send you back, Furkan Korkmaz, or Isaiah Joe, Paul Reed, one of those young guys that maybe they're not as confident in. It'd be someone like that, I would assume. And to me, like that's more besides the point. It's like those guys they might be a little helpful if your bench is that depleted, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not totally I'm not willing to give that too much credence, because I think at the end of the day, the Sixers are trading the better players, so you're going to have to trade like the pieces that maybe what you would consider to be the second, third, fourth best players in that trade. It's not like you're like you said. It's not like you're getting Seth Curry back. It's
Right.
that's not what the Sixers are going to do. If we're giving you the All Star and you're not giving us an All Star back, then you need to give us a lot of good players in return.
Yeah, so I think that is um kind of like what it would come down to. Like, I guess the way that we're explaining it and talking about it right now, it would technically be in terms of true return. Like, you might get someone, like I said a little while ago, I was like, you might get something that has potential and turns into something and makes that trade look even greater, I guess. But really, you would be trading for just Ben Simmons. So just to clarify that, I think that definitely changes and makes a difference in the deal. So, like, shout out to the comment.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the crux and the core of the deal is Ben Simmons. But again, Rob Williams is the hang up for me. Like
Right.
Marcus Smart,
Well,
Nesmith, Pritchard, the picks. I feel like I missed another name, maybe not.
no,
No,
you're
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
You're good.
So that I like those are all I hate to see you go type of things, but it's the Robert Williams there for me. And I'm not saying I wouldn't do like a Ben Simmons for Robert. Like I'm not saying Robert Williams is better than Ben Simmons. I'm saying in terms of your deal, that is where sort of the big ice cream scoop of the value is taken from. Like that is the value I think you're losing there, because I think Ben Simmons replaces Marcus Smart. I think we haven't seen much from Nesmith and Pritchard. Like I do like Pritchard. I think the Pritchard's a great player, but I think you can find other Pritchards. You know what I mean? Like it's not like he's the most unique player out there. I'd sleep well at night if they didn't do the deal, but I'd probably sleep well at night even if they did. So I'm not totally off of it, but Robert Williams is the hang up for me, 100%.
So I was expecting you to press me more on this, because Robert Williams is a guy that I have been very vocal about in the past, saying I love Robert Williams. I think he could be the third star on the team. And now we jump on the show today, and I'm like throwing Robert Williams' name in there like he's leftover Halloween candy or something
But
like
it's
that.
because you're not talking about trading him for a chump. Like
Right.
yes, I embody the Celtics persona and hate Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons still is really good. And I know people talk about what he can't do so much more than what he does, but I can't call you out for Robert Williams because you talk about the third star might be on the team. That's why he's the hang up in the deal for me, because that's the star for star type sort of transfer you're getting here. And Ben
Right.
Simmons is a bona fide star. So I can't be mad at you for being like, oh, like, it's not like we're talking about trading for like, PJ Tucker. And you're like, oh, I'd throw Robert Williams in. Then I'd be like, KJ, you made a video that said Robert Williams is a star or is going to be, he could be a star, but you're talking about trading for a star. So it's not like you're, out of your mind for saying that.
Right. And so, the reason that I am so easily throwing Robert Williams' name in there is because you want, like I said, you want Ben Simmons the All-Star. So
Hmm.
you're gonna need to give up stuff of value. You're gonna have to give up stuff you like.
Yeah.
You cannot give trash for an All-Star, even if right now Simmons is kind of trash to the Sixers. Okay, that's not gonna be how this works. So to me, yes, I love Robert Williams. I don't take this as any sort of indictment on what I think of Robert Williams, but to me, like if you're putting together a package for Ben Simmons that doesn't include one of your two All-Stars, you have to give up someone like that, someone that you can really dig your teeth into that has
Yeah.
potential, that at least the Sixers can say, maybe this guy can be an all-star. And will the Sixers keep Robert Williams? I don't know. I would guess not. I don't think he fits with Embiid ultimately at the end of the day. I don't think you can play those guys in your front court. But can you flip him for a player that is of equal value? Can you send him away for a shooter that I, couldn't even begin to hypothesize about? I'd have to go through
Hmm.
like every other roster in the league and see who might be available. Okay,
Yeah.
but would you consider that? Like, would that be something that the Celtics should consider? Is trading, bringing that third team and trading Mark Williams for something else the Sixers like they should. I think they should do that because at the end of the day, at Robert Williams at his peak, I still don't know if he's the caliber of player that Simmons is. I don't know if he's an all-star. I think he's maybe fringe.
Yeah, I mean it's true. Like I see the chat here. What do we got? I lost it because the chat's flying right now. But
Yeah.
Gloke says people forget how good Simmons is because of a playoff series, which is like totally true, and that's what I'm trying to stick with here. It's that Ben Simmons like is a star, so you'd be trading for a star. He would fit alongside. I don't think you'd have a problem fitting alongside the Jays. But to start the show, I said uh, it's a value thing and it's a price thing. It's a price tag. And Ben Simmons, I don't want to pay full price for right now. I think he'd fit on the team and everything like that, but I think that you can get Ben. So let me ask you this. I guess it's a good question for you. The deal that you offered me, I guess, is that a
Mm.
discount deal? You think that you're getting Ben Simmons at a discount with the four players and the 6 picks or so that you say, or is that you're trading for his all-star value? Because I think we've kind of beat it around that bush. What are you trading for, full Ben Simmons or Ben Simmons in this situation, I guess, in your mind?
Okay, so let me actually answer that with a question. Let's say Jaylen Brown's let's say Jaylen Brown's not in the Celtics, okay?
Yeah.
And you have Jaylen Brown. If I offer you Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith, and picks for Jaylen Brown, are you taking that?
No.
So that's the answer to me. Then the reason this is going to be my answer is that the Ben Simmons is of the world, and the Joel
Mhm.
Embiids and the Jaylen Browns and the Jason Tatum's. The whole deal with them is that if there's not something wrong with them, if they're not forcing their way out of the location, they're not available. Like you're like you can't trade for them. So the
Yeah.
idea, like you mentioned, like do you think you're still getting him for a discount? The fact that you're getting him at all is the discount. Like that, like the fact that this guy is even a possibility to acquire via trade is the crazy deal thing. So
I
that's
guess, yeah.
why, yeah.
I guess, but I do feel like, and it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. In my mind, I'm trading for a number 3 guy. And I know Ben Simmons once was and had the potential to be a number 1. Next
Has
Magic
been a
Johnson,
two.
all of that.
Yeah,
Number
has been
2,
a two.
right? But Jaylen Brown's number 2. It's like I think back to other, I guess like I was gonna say Kemba Walker, terrible example, but just using Kemba Walker as the example, like you offer a boatload for a number 3 guy, it's like yeah, I would take that haul for him. You know what I mean? Now I'm not saying Kemba Walker's even close. Like that's why I say it's a bad example. But in terms of like the Celtics' last third guy type of thing, I think you're trading for a third star here, and I think that's what you're going to be getting. And it sounds like you're leaning more towards the side of you are trading for that what has been slash what could have been, and what still could be type Ben Simmons, right? Like I'm
Yes,
trading for
yeah.
what Ben Simmons is right now, and I honestly don't think Ben Simmons gets much better than what he is. But it seems
Well, bring
like
up
you're
that last
more.
comment that we just brought up when you say, I mean, are you basing that off of what he was in the playoff series or what he was last season?
I'm basing it off the fact that I think Ben Simmons has been as good as he's been pretty much his entire career. He hasn't really improved upon things. He's really, really good and a huge star, but I wouldn't say that Ben Simmons has drastically changed his game. And you used a guy like Jaylen Brown to compare him to. Jaylen Brown is so far from the player he was when he first came in. So, and I only say that because you said, well, if I offer you that deal for Jaylen Brown, and my immediate response was no, it's because I don't think Jaylen Brown and Ben Simmons are very much in the same vein in terms of where they are in their career right now.
So 3 consecutive All-Star teams for Simmons,
Hmm.
two consecutive all-defensive seasons. And, just because he's not the scorer Brown is, I mean, doesn't mean he's not the player he is. And I know that's not what you're saying, but
Oh yeah.
Simmons has made 3 All-Star teams to Brown's 1.
Hmm.
So, that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to throw out there. And, the whole thing about the third star, the second star, the first star, like if I'm the Lakers and I'm trading for Anthony Davis, am I saying, well, I shouldn't have to give up as much because he's going to be my second star? Like, no, you're trading for Anthony Davis. You're trading for Ben Simmons. Does it matter where he is on the pecking order in my team? Like, no, not really. I mean, he could be the 2 somewhere. The Magic could trade for him, and he could be their number 1 player. Like, it's
Hmm.
to me, it's all minutia. It's at the end of the day, how much do I think Ben Simmons is worth? And I think that an All-Star is worth an awful lot. I'll say.
Do you think
Real
Jaylen
quickly,
has like? Do you think it's crazy to say Jaylen will be an All-Star more times than Ben Simmons when it's all said and done? Because that's my whole
uh,
point. Ben Simmons is the same player that he was when he came in.
right. I don't think it's crazy. I think that it's debatable. I think
Sure, it's debatable, but I think that proves it then.
proves
Jay,
what.
because has a 2 All-Star head start on him, and the fact that
Yeah.
we could even
Well,
debate that. Oh well,
okay.
he definitely.
Head start. They were the same draft class, but okay. Head start. Go ahead. Like
No,
he's
two
out to
All
an
Star head
early
start by
lead.
the time when we talk about it right now, by the
Yeah, he's
time
out
it's
to an
all said
early
and done,
lead.
he's
Is the
already
way I would
has
say.
3 and Jaylen has 1. That's 100% a head start.
Well, he's out to an early lead. I wouldn't call it a head start. Like they were drafted in the same draft class.
You're saying early lead and head start are at all different.
Yeah, like because you're acting like Ben Simmons got to start his career before Jaylen Brown. That's not the case. They
No,
both
in
started at the
this
same
debate,
time.
who's going to have more All Stars? Not even a debate, but
Right. If you're
Ben
yeah,
Simmons has a
but
head start.
I guess so. But I mean, we don't
He
need to
does.
debate
It's
head
3 to
start
1.
versus.
How is that?
No, because they both start at the same time. Like we're not talking about this in like aggregate now.
The
We're
start is
saying
right now. KJ, the start's right now. When I say who's going to have more All Stars by the end of their career, the start's right now. It's 3 to 1. Ben
I
Simmons has a
mean
head start. It's
I
not at the beginning of
guess.
their career.
Yeah, but okay, that's just not the way I'm looking at it, though. But the way I'm looking at it is like, okay, if we're looking at this player's career in all encompassing, like at the end of his
Hmm.
career, should this guy make the Hall of Fame? Say, okay, like look at his whole resume, and that the whole resume of his career. But that's besides the point. The bigger point to me is that Simmons to me is still a really good player. Might he miss the All-Star team this year because he's not going to play enough games? Right now, it looks like
Hmm.
yeah, it looks like that's not going to happen. But I think that if he comes back and plays next year and he's still an all NBA defender and maybe he's getting more shot attempts, at least at the basket without playing it with Joel Embiid and he's, getting more assists, like I think he'll be right back in the All-Star game. So, and I think, like you said, I mean, star power matters too. So if people see Ben Simmons back playing and playing at a well enough level, like he's going to be in the mix there for the All-Star team. So look, I don't, like I said, I don't think it's crazy, but I think that it's pretty even. So I don't know what's even sparked that. It's like I'm still not trading Jaylen Brown for Ben Simmons. Just the
Hmm.
the whole point is that I'm still treating Ben Simmons as a high caliber player. And I know that people have been mentioned in the chat already the Jaylen stuff. Bergen saying it's borderline treasonous to talk about the trade for Jaylen. He wouldn't trade him for Prime Drexler. Jaylen's the best player on the team. Saying maybe he's a top 2 player in the East. So it's very clear that people, I think I even saw a poll. I don't know if you saw it. I tweeted out yesterday, like 86% people on this poll said they wouldn't trade Jaylen Brown for Ben Simmons. And I'm assuming the other 14% was Sixers fans. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty clear that nobody thinks that's a fair deal.
I mean, you have to be crazy to think that that's the case.
And then Jack saying, if the Celtics have to give up Jaylen, I think they should trade for Ben. No questions
Don't have
asked.
to give up Jaylen. Yeah.
The Celtics don't have to give up Jaylen. Yeah, I think they should trade for Ben. No questions asked. But like KJ said, no shot Philly takes the deal. Yeah, I'm on Jack's side with that. I know, Ev, you differ from that. You think that if the Sixers should just take the best offer, and if Celtics have the best offer, that's the offer they should take, and that's the end of it.
Yeah. I think it also goes back to the fact that they're like trying to get rid of him. Do you know what I mean? It's not I think that my answer might change if you're talking like, for whatever reason they're going to trade Embiid right now, but he's playing for them and playing well and that type of thing. Ben Simmons hasn't even been on the court, so I don't think that they would be like, "Oh gosh, we can't trade him to our rival," because I don't know.
And then Birkin, of course, the reason I didn't include Romeo in the deal is because I knew that Birkin would instantly be out, so I didn't. I made sure not to put Romeo in there. Alex saying Romeo, Smart, Neesmith, and all the trash players for Simmons. Again, like if you're just taking out your trash, if you're saying like, okay, I don't like Neesmith so far, and Smart's been a problem this year, and Romeo, he's a bust. So yeah, you can have all of my garbage and give me Ben Simmons. Like I know that Ben Simmons' value is down too, and I know that you could say the same thing about him. Like, hey, you can have my trash and give me Jaylen Brown. Like obviously that's not happening either. But like you still need to give up something. Like if I'm the Sixers and I can't trade Jaylen Brown in a year, if I can trade Ben Simmons in a year and the Celtics come to me and offer me that, like I'm still saying no. Like I'm still not doing a trade like that at any point. I need real value, so I'm still not doing that. I need the picks and a player like Robert Williams of his caliber, or if you're rerouting him somewhere else, give me a player that's at least that good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is like we've talked about Rob too. I think that is like a good example of what the Celtics would probably like, and other guys, but that would be sort of to me the pinnacle of what they're giving up, and that is, I guess, you could say includes like what Ben Simmons has done in his past, also what he's doing right now, but then also includes the fact that like, well, we don't know what his future holds because you're not getting anything crazy, but you are getting potential back. And the Sixers have invested so much time and effort into Ben Simmons, drafting him, everything like that. They've invested so much into him that they are going to want something in return. They're not going to be like, okay, well, you know what? It's long enough. Let's just get the trash for him. No, the Sixers are going to try, they'll fight till the death to try and get something for him. It's just like, I think this whole time, this something, I think that they have to kind of reevaluate, because that something's not going to be another, NBA superstar in my mind.
Phil saying trade Smart, Nesmith, and Grant for Ben Simmons. I don't know if that's happening. Birkin saying Romeo is better than Simmons. So it's all the reasons that's potentially true. And a similar pack to what we said, package to what we said, just Romeo instead of Pritchard. And again, I think Morey's going to be enamored with the shooting there, so that's a big reason why he's going to do that. The package I would give is Smart, Nesmith, Pritchard, and Richardson, plus 3 first-round picks. What about every Celtics fans on the trade package? So the reason that I actually don't, and maybe I think that Robert Williams is going to be a requirement to some extent in some version, But the reason that I think Richardson doesn't make a lot of sense is like for Philly, it's kind of been there, done that. Like sure. I don't know if they want they're beating down the door to have Josh Richardson back. It's the reason why I don't know that a trade of that included Al Horford in any capacity would work. Like that's for Philadelphia, it's weird that you have 2 players that they were so desperate to get rid of, but on your roster. But it makes it I guess a little more difficult to find the trade match for Simmons, because you probably can't include either of those guys.
Yeah, I if they were throw-ins, then maybe. But I feel like, if you're talking like, oh, would they rather Nesmith or rather Josh Richardson? Josh Richardson's way more of a proven NBA player, but Philly's probably saying, oh, we'd rather Nesmith. You know what I mean? It's like for the reasons that you just said. Like they're not necessarily, I guess, looking to bring back guys that, like you said, been there, done that. But either way, it's like we're still talking. I don't know how to say, because we're still talking about guys that just don't really, to me, matter in the deal there. I think it still comes down to when you threw out Rob's name, but we've definitely beaten that dead horse, I guess.
And I see a lot of people in the chat saying Romeo's better than Simmons. What are you talking about, Birkin? Like, if you guys don't know, Birkin's in here a lot. Birkin is a big Romeo guy, so he says some crazy things about Romeo Langford. I don't know what the craziest things we've seen. I think he said some crazy. I don't want to say he said Romeo should start over Jaylen Brown, but I'm not going to say he hasn't said that, because I feel like that's something Birkin would say. Birkin does that stuff all the time, so don't take that stuff too seriously. Big MGM saying I'm taking this the ceiling, let alone the floor of Ben Simmons over Smart, Romeo, and Grant. And that's really the whole point here is like Simmons hasn't even reached his ceiling in Philadelphia, and that's what's really scary, and that's what Philadelphia is scared of. Like they're scared we're going to trade Ben Simmons, he's going to become the player we expect him to be, and then suddenly we look like idiots. But if he's not playing for you, you don't have a choice, man. Like you're screwed. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still against trading for Ben Simmons based on potential. Like he's been since he got in the league. His numbers are very, very similar. He's been the same player, and that player is great, by the way. But it's like I'm trading for the Ben Simmons right here, right now, because that Ben Simmons, as much as we're saying, oh, it's one playoff series, tarnished his reputation, whatnot, that Ben Simmons that we've seen for 4 years has been very, very flat, in my opinion, to what he was when he first came out. And that's still great. The Celtics could use a 6'10" plus, fast as lightning, defending all positions, ball handling, great passer type player. But I just won't. I won't hear out the argument of, oh, Ben Simmons could get so much better. It's like, yeah, he definitely could. And Robert Williams could be the next Hakeem Olajuwon, or I could grow 3 feet and be an NBA center. Like Ben Simmons, to me, what we've seen is a guy that's really, really, really good right now, all NBA caliber. But it's not like he's gonna turn into anything we haven't seen yet. Like he's not making that improvement in his game. He's already really good, but I don't see him getting better.
Yeah, Highlight King saying Grant Williams for Ben Simmons straight up. I have to think about that one.
Celtics wouldn't do that.
I see. I said you needed to include players with potential, like even Marcus Smart, Peyton Pritchard, Neesmith, Robert Williams. Like, you don't need to include players with superstar potential like Grant Williams. That is a step too far for me. Grant Williams untradeable. I can't do that. Birkin saying, maybe we should trade him and we don't deserve him. Jimmy J, if Simmons fails in Boston, then what? He's completely finished. Boston will crucify him. Part of this I want to focus on. That is the other thing. Us or other people around Boston, can you imagine the field day some of these Boston media members would have with Ben Simmons if he was doing some of the stuff that he was doing in Philly, passing out of layups, if he's taking, and I don't mean this disparagingly at all, but if he's taking a break for his mental health right now in Philadelphia, which Philadelphia is a tough market to play in, Boston's just as tough. Boston is just as difficult with how crazy, I guess maybe not how crazy the fans are. The fans aren't as crazy in Philly, but how committed they are and how critical they can be at times.
Yeah, I wouldn't, especially just the player, say he's even playing really, really well, his player profile is the type of player that would still get ragged on. You know what I mean? He's somehow a superstar in this league that haters have credibility shitting on. You know what I mean? It's so weird. It's like you can always go back to the he gets to the hoop and then passes. And that's honestly we talk about Ben Simmons not being able to shoot. I don't really care that he doesn't want to take a 3. Okay, whatever. That's he could clearly do stuff otherwise. It's you said passing out of layups, you just mentioned it. It's when Ben Simmons has an easy finger roll and he kicks it to who would be a Grant Williams or someone else for a 3. I'm like, dude, just put it in. That's what drives me nuts about him. But he's a he's an intriguing player. I'll go with that word, because perplexing player. There we go. That's a win. But he's a perplexing. I'm not doing it again. He's an intriguing player because he is
Archie Diacono again. Ev?
Yes, Archie Diacono Macchiato. But he's an interesting player because he is sort of a superstar that you still have somewhat of a credence to say, hey, he stinks at this, which is very rare.
Antonio didn't like our debate about the head start. Sorry, Antonio. I know that was not on the agenda today, but we had to fit it in there. It was London Lake saying, just got here. Simmons can't shoot. Perfect fit here. I don't know if either of us said perfect fit, but to me, it's you can have a star player, and right now, it's seeming less likely that third star is coming from somewhere else. We were talking about Bradley Beal before the season. Wizards are playing kind of well right now, and it's is he gonna take that max deal in Washington? Is it is there another way to get him here? The Bradley Beal stuff to me is fading, and the other options to get a third star are just not obvious. So if you have a chance of getting Ben Simmons, to me, you kind of have to do it. And stars come available quite often, so I'm not going to act like this is your last chance, but it might be one of your best. You can get a player that you can pair next to Tatum Brown, who theoretically would defer to them, would set them up, would be willing to, or be a willing passer, which is a kind of player that you've kind of wanted, right? It didn't work when you had the other scorers and everybody was fighting for the ball and fighting for shots. Simmons isn't that guy. He's going to set up Brown and Tatum and be a good defender next to them. So perfect fit, I don't know, maybe not, but it can work. I can see why you would think those guys are being a good fit. Tatum and Brown are good shooters, so you don't necessarily need Simmons to be.
I view it in like even forget the half court offense game. You know what I mean? Like this team with Ben Simmons alongside Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown would fly and ruin teams in transition. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think they'd figure out a way to work half court offenses. I feel like we're acting like Ben Simmons has like a spaz attack every time he's touches the ball. That isn't the case. I mean, he doesn't elect to shoot or even score as much as he probably could, and they need that in Philly, and that's why I think that people have definitely soured on him, and why we've had, we've been justified to rag on him as Celtics fans for years, right? Because he literally will do that. But here, it's like it's a way different situation. You're asking less from him when it comes to how many points did you score at the end of the game, and you're asking more of, hey, we have a position open right now where this ball needs to move and the offense needs to fly and flow, and he's a guy that can do that. So I mean, perfect fit, no. But with the Jays, I think that that's a guy that literally, like, you talk about a guy that can grow with them, and obviously we're not even talking about money or anything like that right now. Like, that's kind of besides the point. But a guy that can grow with Jason Tatum, grow with Jaylen Brown, like, obviously similar age. I think that he's a guy that now brings something else to the table defensively and everything like that. So good fit, 100%. But again, it's not going to be one of the Jays to trade for him. It's all price dependent.
And Darag's saying, could you run through a potential one? Apologies if I missed it real quick. If anybody missed it, the one we're hypothesizing about is a package of something along the lines of Smart, Time Lord, Pritchard, and Neesmith, and picks for Simmons. That's what we're maybe possibly thinking the Sixers could be interested in, despite the fact that they leaked this Jaylen Brown report. Which, by the way, I mean, I don't know if you said anything about it. Any like, do you agree with my whole point about that was a Sixers leak? Like, come on, like that's just Daryl Morey
I think so too.
Dirty a little bit.
I think 100. It has to be, because that would never, like, that couldn't come from the Celtics side. Like, if that was truly, like, absolutely true, like, that's if I'm Jaylen Brown, I'm pissed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm the best player on the team this year, and you can't even question that right now. And you're gonna go and trade me for a guy that hasn't even suited up yet? Like, that has to be a Sixers leak, and maybe the most credibility it could be that, Morey mentioned Brown's name and asked that, so it's not like a total lie that they had conversations about it. But if there's no legs behind we think we can get Jaylen, and then I know we debunked it, but Jaylen and then some for Ben Simmons, no way. It has to be a Sixers leak. They're trying to drive up his value elsewhere by being like, hey, Boston's thinking about giving us Jaylen Brown. What do you say about you giving us your star?
Yeah. JC will end it on this one saying, trade Evan picks for Lonzo Ball. I am not doing that deal. I could never trade Ev realistically. He's too valuable to the Celtics post-game shows. Could not see him. Could you imagine having to do Bulls post-game shows? That maybe it'd be more enjoyable right now, but I don't know. It'd be fun right now, yeah. I don't know if you'd survive.
Maybe I'd demand a trade to the Bulls.
Oh, wow. All right, watch out for that, people. You heard it here first. Ev Singleton has demanded a trade to the Chicago Bulls post-game shows. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks, as always, for joining us. One topic show, Ev. I mean, we know that when there's that many people that want to talk about it, obviously a huge story. Pretty easy to run through Simmons and Brown all day. We didn't even get to really talk about Jaylen Brown's going to be out for the next 2 weeks and how that affects the Celtics. Real quick, do you have any thoughts going forward? I mean, it seemed like they just started to trend upward, winning those 2 games in a row, getting to 4 and 5, and it started to look like, okay, and then Brown gets hurt, and it's like, oh, man. It looked like they were just figuring things out.
I know, and that's funny that we've been talking about him all episode, and it really is like, oh, well, by the way, he's got, I don't want to say a long-term, but a non-total short-term type injury. So yeah, that sucks. I mean, you're losing your best player, but I'm hoping that now Tatum can kind of look himself in the mirror and be like, hey, you know what? Maybe we've started to pick something up here. Maybe we started to turn a corner, but let's go. Like, we have to do this now, or the season could be, I know it's super, like, corny to say at the beginning, but hopefully Tatum says, hey, this is the season right now. I need to start playing better as this team's, star.
Yeah. And finally, Jaylen, not trading Jaylen for a package of Prime, Sabonis, Peace, Bizzle, Pete, MJ. So yeah, Jaylen's not being traded, I think, is what the sense we're getting. All right, guys, thank you once again for watching. Catch the previous or catch the replays. We'll be back next week again. You can go back and restart this. It'll be fully up after the stream if you want to go back and see the beginning of our conversation about Ben Simmons. You weren't here for that. Be sure to do so. Have any final thoughts before we get off the air? I don't know when our show next week is. We always don't plan ahead. We just kind of fit it in wherever we can fit it in with the Celtics schedule. But Tuesday's become a consistent day. I think they're playing next Tuesday. Oh, they're not playing next Tuesday. So maybe we have to do
Maybe that's
Tuesday
the day.
again.
Yeah,
Seems like the perfect day.
We'll keep everyone up to date, so we'll post if anything changes, if it's not Tuesday or anything like that, we'll post in the community tab there, so you guys will get that on your YouTube feed. But if you're watching on YouTube, which most of you guys are right now, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and we will we'll be back here. Hopefully we're not talking about, all of a sudden Jaylen Brown traded for Ben Simmons type of thing. I don't think so.
You jinxed it. You said we haven't had trouble coming up with titles, so now it's just going to get progressively crazier every week for the Celtics.
That one isn't happening.
All right, guys. Thanks once again for watching. And that's it. We'll catch you on the next show. Be sure to tune in. Celtics pregame and postgame tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, both of those back up and running. So be sure to check that out for the Raptors game. And we'll see you guys back here on the Celtics Power Hour probably next Tuesday.